What's going on? The podcast, according to sources, I am your guy, Sean Davis at SD2Mics. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Follow, according to sources, at A2SPod1 on Twitter and Instagram. Of course, the best three-man weave in podcast land, and I have my guys on the wing. To the left, C4 Dunk, Chris Kaysen, and to the right, Brian Crawford at B_Crawford D, Chris Kaysen at C4 Dunk. Special guest, not even a guest, just say family. This is just family, man. Our guy, we all look up to him. He's paved the way for all of us to be in this business and to do and love what we do. None other than Scoop Jackson is joining us today on the podcast, according to sources. What's going on, big bro?
Nothing, man. Trying to maintain. How's everybody doing? Y'all are good. Thanks for having me on. The whole nine.
Man, look, before
it's good to be back together.
It is. Sir. Absolutely.
Almost. Brian know the only thing missing is the cocktails, right?
That's it. I'll be right there where you was at.
Hey, Scoop, how you feeling about your White Sox, man, before we get into
it? Good and bad. They were streaky. You know, I like the way they played in the two games that they lasted. So they did show some fight. You know, you saw how young they really were. But, you know, they started off the season bad, got extremely hot, which I thought was going to be their norm. And then that last, 10 games, man, they just that dive they took at the end of the regular season, games 50 through 60. I'm like, okay, what are they? Because it was totally polar opposite of what they had done going up to there. I just thought they may have gotten a bad start to open up the season, but then the end of the season showed me that they have capabilities basically just being streaky. So I just really going into the postseason with a wild card series. I like the fight that they showed, and that they could stay in games, and that the offense still had some significant. It just it was promising. I like the fact that they made it. And I like the fact that the two games they were in, they fought. So I'm cool with what I saw.
As always in the podcast, according to sources, we start out with our opening layups. So I'm going to go ahead, look to the right, though. There's no look, bounce past the C4. What's on your mind?
Well, basically, I'm tired of the media picking on Kyrie. We have to stop misinterpreting, what this guy is saying. But if I had an opening layup, I don't know. I really don't have one. Looking at the finals, I'm just hoping Miami can find some way to must out one game. I really don't want, it's not really even an extended layoff until next season begins, but I just don't want it to be that easy as this look.
All right, behind the back to BC, what's your opening layup, my brother?
Man, I don't really have one either, other than, I'm just, like I said on Twitter the other day, man, I'm praying for Doc Rivers, man. He about to go to Philly. Had to deal with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, coming off of Kawhi and Paul George. So, man, I'm just going to pray for Doc. Hope everything works out, man.
Hey, you got 5 years and a couple million.
Hey, man, real talk. This might be Doc's last time at a big contract as a coach in the NBA. So 5 years is definitely he should have some leverage and power with a 5-year contract.
And I hope so. I'm just glad he didn't, he wasn't unemployed longer than 72 hours, it seemed like. So he went from LA to Philly. So, he landed right back on his feet. So I'm good for him. But y'all know how I feel about Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. So we'll see if we can turn it around, man.
They're definitely about to have the blackest organization in the NBA with Elton Brand there, Doc there, Joel, Ben, how they rolling down the line. So I'm surprised he took it, though. I thought he was going to take about a year off.
I said,
with the big free agency coming up next year and all these moving parts, I thought he was just going, I'm going to chill and wait to see who land where and take whatever spot's going to be open in. But, knowing Doc and knowing Elton, they played their black card. Seriously, come on down and make this happen.
Yeah.
And they just gave the Bulls Mark Eversley. So they lost one of their black guys to Chicago.
Perfect. Yeah, no, they did. But we can't got to be all black in the same situation all the time. We can spread out a little bit. I just like the way they're building. And if they really, I don't think they're gonna be able to do it now, with Doc going there. But if he finds a way to get Dawn Staley on his staff, man. Yeah, you might see some problems. That next collective bargaining agreement may not be about the players if they do.
100%.
That's 100.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yo, let's get into the NBA Finals, man. For the first time, LeBron James has a 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals. The Los Angeles Lakers are 20-1 when Anthony Davis and LeBron James combined for 60 points. Another thing that was a shock that I had a chance to talk to C4 about before we came on air, I was shocked to see that in the NBA playoffs, down in the bubble, the Los Angeles Lakers are actually shooting 2 percentage points higher from three-point land than the Miami Heat. I was shocked by that. We gave our predictions on the last podcast, and we talked about LeBron James, Rajon Rondo, and Anthony Davis getting to the middle of that zone and pretty much tearing it up. And that's what we've been seeing, along with the injuries to Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo. Is there anything, C4, that Miami can do? Eric Spoelstra is probably pulling the hair that he has out, trying to figure out a way. But physically, I just don't see anything that Miami might be able to do to turn the tide of this series.
Pray. And I don't think my Spoelstra is not the type of guy to go away from his philosophy. So that he's basically just going to preach whatever they do, just do it 10 times as harder. They essentially have to play perfect basketball, like quarters 1 through 4. They can't have any let up at all. I mean, they have to play collective on the defensive end, and they also have to, get more looks from the three-point land. But it's so difficult when you're literally giving almost up 2 points each time down the floor because you have no answer for like Anthony Davis at all. I mean, and LeBron you have two of the smartest players on the same team also. So it's just a tall task. There's not really too much they can do. They were all already kind of outmatched coming into this series, and now being down two of their best players is just way more difficult now.
Scoop, BC, anything they can do?
Man, I don't think there's a lot they can do. I think, all of that momentum went out the window. Obviously, when Dragic got hurt, Bam got hurt, and then Jimmy obviously twisted his ankle in that game 1. But, being down, like Chris said, being down 2 of your best 3 players, it's not really a whole lot that you can do. They showed a lot of fight last night. I thought it was good for them to only be down 10, without Bam and, Dragic. So, they kind of stayed in it. But, like you said, man, like Anthony Davis is playing on another level. And LeBron, like you said, the last, podcast, he pretty much on cruise control. Like, he don't really have to do too much, just do what he does. So I don't really think there's anything to do. If there was a chance for them to get a game, it was probably last night. They probably get swept now.
It's amazing. We talked about this on the last podcast as well. We asked the question, is Anthony Davis the best fit as a teammate that LeBron has ever had? Going back to, of course, Dwayne Wade and Kyrie Irving. And Dwayne Wade tweeted that in the middle of the game last night. He said it, like AD is the best fit that's ever been next to LeBron James as a teammate. So moving on from that.
I think he's the best fit at this point in LeBron's career.
Okay.
Let's get it. LeBron is not the same player that he was when he was playing with Dwayne Wade. And I don't know if Anthony Davis, even if he was playing with LeBron, the way LeBron was playing back then would have been the best fit. At this point in time, with LeBron going through what he's been through at this age that he is, and the way he plays basketball from his mind first instead of his body first, AD is the perfect player for him right now. I hear what Dwayne Wade saying, but collectively, if you were giving him Anthony Davis back then in Miami, nah, I still think Dwayne Wade in my mind. And that's Dwayne Wade. We know during LeBron's whole time there, Dwayne wasn't 100% healthy.
Right.
If LeBron had gotten Dwayne 100% healthy throughout that ride, we wouldn't even be. Anthony's nice, but we wouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Yeah, that's true.
And let me throw something else out there, really, to piggyback on the thing about Miami having a chance. I think it's unfortunate, but if you look at the recent history of the finals, there's always been some type of injury that has played a role. Always, in the last at least 5-6 years, some major injury has played a role in who was crowned champion. But I believe this, and maybe it's because we're working on a story on this. It's not just Rondo, it's not just LeBron, it's not just AD. The other player that Miami is fighting against that's on that Lakers squad is the one that's unseen, and that's Kobe Bryant. Kobe's entire presence, not just in the shoes and the uniform, it's the incentive that they're playing for to win something from him that Miami cannot match. So I don't care if Goran and Bam were healthy. That extra incentive that they're dealing with Kobe's spirit, you know, of them talking about him all the time, of them having prayer circles with him included in it, of them wearing his uniform, of their after every game, you know, 1, 2, 3, Mamba, all that stuff, that extra incentive, there's nothing Miami has to match that. Nothing. You know, and when you have a spirit that's big, that no other team can lean on that. You know, we can all lean on Kobe was our guy and this and the other, we missing it. But that Lakers organization, that Lakers franchise, and this right now, with them being so close to winning the championship and having that rally cry within them saying, we're doing this for Kobe, there's nothing. I don't care who the hell, you know what I'm saying? Who the hell is playing for Miami? There's nothing that they can do to match that. That's that fourth player that's in that lineup that Miami has no answer for.
Yeah, you're right. And when you think about that, I guess what we're looking at even before the injuries, you know, Miami was looking at almost an insurmountable challenge trying to overcome the Lakers in this NBA Finals. Yeah. As BC, you talked about it. LeBron at this point in time, man, is just coasting. Like him putting up numbers is nothing. He feels the stat sheet all the time. What we're seeing, what's different? Because Anthony Davis is coming to the NBA playoffs. He averaged 30 and 12 in the playoff games that he played previously before he played playoff games with the Lakers. When you say he's gone to the next level, all you guys, what is it? Is it his mindset? Is it just being able to play next to LeBron? Or do you just think the force he's playing with is a little bit different than he played with in the playoffs when he's with the Pelicans?
I think it's all of it, you know. You know, like Scoop said, you know, obviously, you know, you got that Kobe thing. Like I've told this story before. Like when Anthony Davis was in high school, he was all about LeBron James. He didn't even like Kobe Bryant. Then, you know, he got a chance to play with him, you know, at the Olympics, and then obviously, you know, they kind of developed a relationship over the years. Then he ends up in LA, you know, and now he all about Kobe wearing the shoes and everything else. You know, I think AD just understands and realizes like this is his moment. You know, this is his time to finally say, you know what, you know, I'm a champion and I can be a pivotal part of a championship team. Yeah. And, you know, obviously, you see in the finals MVP debate, you know, about that. And, you know, I just think he understands the moment. He's seizing it and he's taking over. And, you know, and I think this is what we're seeing right now is like the arrival of Anthony Davis. Like we've seen it, you know, kind of building up to this. But, you know, now you're at the championship level and he's pretty much unstoppable. So, you know, I think it's a combination of all of that. And, you know, I'm just glad, you know, just to see another Chicago guy in that position, you know, and not just in a position to win the championship, but we're in a position to like make a big difference in that team winning the championship.
I think it's also him playing for a purpose.
Yep.
You know, if you look at the fact of what he's been through, you know, the last time he's really played for anything significant or for a purpose was when he was in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. You know, and now we're seeing him getting to the stage where he's a veteran in the league. He understands the league, you know, and now, you know, that purpose a lot of times and a lot of players brings out something that they never had in them before because they never had to play for that. Mm-hmm. You know, I thought that was going to be the case if the Clippers won it because you look at a player like Lou Williams, you know, he's never had to play for anything before. You know, you thought, all right, now you got something on the table you can play for. Paul George, now you got something on the table you can play for. So, you know, there are players in the league who have had a long history and never gotten to this stage, and that purpose brings itself out of them. Now, in AD's case, not only is it the purpose, but this has to be the easiest the game has felt for him in his entire career because he's playing alongside LeBron and he has Rondo on the court with him. You know, he has two cats that are basically not just facilitators, but are looking to him first to make their game easy. Now, Rondo makes it easy because of their connection in New Orleans. So they already have a connection coming in. That's beautiful. But LeBron makes it easy because it's LeBron. And no team, I don't care how much you want to coach them, is going to unbrainwash themselves and not pay attention to LeBron and pay attention to AD. When you see LeBron on the court and you've done it for so long, you automatically throw all your defensive strategies out the window and pay attention to him when he has the ball in his hands, when he does it. Eric Spoelstra could be like, look, damn LeBron, let LeBron beat us. We have to pay attention to Anthony Davis. That's all fine in practice. That's all fine in huddles. But when you get out there in that court, you've already been trained. That's LeBron James. Your mind automatically goes to paying attention to him. And Anthony Davis is like, damn, I'm getting single coverages. You know, I'm getting double teams used to be easy for me because I was used to seeing triple teams and schemes and everything. Now, because I'm playing with LeBron, I don't have 4 people in front of me. You know what I'm saying? You add purpose to that, and this is what you get. It's very similar to what KD saw when he went to Golden State. He was playing with Russ, but that's one thing. But when you get on that Golden State squad and you got Steph and you got Clay and defenses, regardless of what they try to do, like, man, these cats have been killing us for years. We got to protect that thing. You see KD's like, damn, this is almost unfair. Or the word, what's the word we saw? Illegal. Yeah. It's illegal. To do, and it's the same thing with AD right now. It's almost illegal for him to be in this space right now. They had to play with LeBron James because of how the game has opened up to him in a way he's never seen it before, ever.
You think they iced him out in the fourth quarter, man? AD should have ended up with about 45 last night, man.
Yeah, but he didn't have to. You know, I think if the game got tight, really tight, and they really felt it was in jeopardy, he would have done that.
Yeah.
But he sat out for a little while. LeBron started doing LeBron things a little bit, you know, and he, you know, look, if y'all need me to score, I can't score. I'm with you. I scored 30 in 3 quarters. I'm good, you know. But look, if they had really felt that they were threatening to lose that game, he would have just beasted down on the blocks. He would have just bodied a couple of people and then, you know, come out. He would have come out with 40 at most, but, you know, it wasn't necessary. You know, it wasn't necessary. And to be honest with you, they don't have any beef with Miami. So they want to beat them, but they're not trying to embarrass them like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Y'all all play ball. Y'all know what that's about.
Yeah.
Y'all know what it is. Like, look, man, as long as we win the game, we good. We're not trying to send any messages. We're not trying to make it hard on these cats. They're already man down, you know, 2 men down. So we're not rubbing in like that. We're not gonna have AD go for 50 just to embarrass them like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna
especially in a bubble. You know,
that's what I was gonna say. Like everybody ready to get home. They ready to get out that bubble, man. Like everybody is like over it just about. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, you don't want to roll. You know, you don't want to roll because you can't leave anybody right now. You don't want to go face to face with somebody because you don't know what they're gonna come with. You know, it's bad enough you already beat Miami. They 2 men down. You know, then you have AD, you know, personally trying to get 50 in the finals game.
Right.
What happens when you see him just walking across? You know, you're going to see him because you can't leave each other. And, you know, hey, there could be lumps coming up. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Y'all all on the same. Right. Y'all all on the same floor.
Seriously injured. Right. You know what I'm saying? You don't want that. You know. And Bam got the African blood, man. You know them Africans, we don't play. True Africans, we don't play.
Right.
We don't play that, man. We warriors. So, hey, all that's nice. You want 50? All right, here go 50 to the head, son. Y'all know.
Yep.
Man, the effort shown by Jimmy Butler coming off of that twisted ankle in game 1 last night, man. He tried to put that Heat team on his back. Almost end up with a triple-double, career high in assists, and literally gave that team everything he had and every which way he could give it to keep them close in that game and give them a chance to win. You know, last podcast, Scoop, we talked about the Chicago Bulls and looking back and do they have regrets and could they have built around Jimmy the same way Miami's built around Jimmy? And, you know,
on a podcast talking about that?
Yeah, because, you know, my contention, it was a big topic, and my contention was you can't compare the Miami organization to the Bulls organization. That's just the way I look at it.
That's true. All right, okay.
That's
I'm just like, I don't know why y'all waste your time talking about the Bulls anyway, any context.
Man, let's go ahead and hop in. C4, you mentioned this briefly and hinted it. Kevin Durant, the ETC podcast, he launched it, and his first guest was his teammate Kyrie Irving. And this is what had social media all in an uproar yesterday.
I don't see it as anything other than that. Like, 1-3 pick and roll, or it's an ISO for either one of us, or it's something great for our team. One thing I've always been comfortable with is, you know, I felt like I was the best option on every team I played for, you know, down the stretch. This is the first time in my career where I could look down and be like, that make that shot too.
Kyrie Irving, of course, people took what he said and thought he was trying to go at LeBron James. C4, you said people were taking it out of context. What did you read from the comments of Kyrie Irving?
I just basically meant, I mean, when you think about shot makers, we still really don't think of LeBron as like a shot maker, especially when you get he's made shots at the end, but we don't necessarily feel he's the guy that like they're going to. You look at, you know, the Western Conference Finals. Who did they go to at the end? Anthony Davis. I mean, LeBron probably would have been like the second option.
Yeah,
he played, but I mean, I looked at it as that, like, and Kyrie feels like he's the guy when they were teammates that the ball was going to him because his ability to create shots. Like LeBron is good at facilitating, getting guys, you know, shots at the end of the game. He's not necessarily the one who's wanted to take those shots. So I looked at it in terms of that standpoint. And we look at KD, he's another guy who's a shot maker. So I didn't look at it as any type of disrespect to LeBron. But of course, when you say it, like, I think what the exact quote was, like, on any team I've been at, that includes LeBron, that includes like a Jason Tatum. So you can look at it in that way. But great views for the first podcast, by the way. Now you got everybody that can sub-quote that, everything. So it did its job.
I'm personally mad at it, but not for what Chris said, because, you know, if we're really honest about it, Kyrie didn't say anything like LeBron probably didn't tell him.
Yep.
You know, LeBron probably like, man, it's on you. You know, every for the time they spent together, LeBron probably stressed that to him. Like, these in the game, it's on you. It's your game at the end. I'll take us there. You finish. You close. So there's no disrespect there, you know. But that's where we live as media. But I'm mad at KD because he lied to me.
How you lie?
The first podcast is supposed to be Russ Bankston and I talking about Slam Magazine.
Oh.
Russ and I was supposed. They told us, you're the first guest. We wanted to have y'all on the podcast, talk about how important Slam Magazine was to the culture. Man, they were like, it's an honor for you all to come on and be our guest to launch this podcast. Russ and I like, cool, let's do it. Now them fools done bumped us for Kyrie Irving, and now they got good views, and I'm mad because the shit worked. It's actually a smart move. I'm like, damn.
Well, they probably get y'all on the second episode.
Oh, it's this. I mean, we recorded it. We probably
recorded it
before you got with Kyrie.
Okay.
And then they're like, you know what? We're gonna need some numbers. This ain't the smartest thing.
Man, give us a little tidbit of what you guys talked about.
We just talked about the history of the magazine, and Kevin had made a comment that he felt the Slam coming up was more important than ESPN and Sports Illustrated when it came to basketball, to the culture of basketball. And he just wanted to kind of like just give us our flowers and talk through, you know, the history of the magazine with Russ and I. So we kind of, you know, it was a nice 2-hour conversation, reminiscing, going through some stuff, telling stories, you know, that they probably didn't even know, you know, just talking about the magazine. It was fun. It was fun, but you know, it's all good. But they told us, the way they sold it to us, like, hey man, y'all our first guest.
Y'all was
like,
gonna be first.
Right. Hey man, look, man. Let's be honest. If you a virgin in this game and it's your first time, I'm gonna choose Kyrie before I choose me and Russ all day. Right. If this is gonna be my first time, no, I'm going with that dude.
That makes sense.
All day.
Something else came up in that podcast, very interesting. Kyrie had another comment when he talked about Steve Nash and pretty much just said, look, man, we really don't need a head coach. We don't look at Steve Nash as a head coach. I could be the head coach. KD even mentioned that Jacques Vaughn could be the head coach. And it came off as just very arrogant to a lot of people, just dismissing the importance of head coaches in the NBA. We all know, and history has shown, if you have the best players, more than likely 96% of the time you win the NBA championship.
unless you make D'Antoni.
That's true. That's true.
That's real.
So your thoughts on that comment, BC? Like, do you think they really believe that, or are they just speaking as far as how they view the game right now? They're able to go out there and execute and lead a team without having this big, I guess, Phil Jackson type as a head coach.
Well, I mean, I think, a lot of the perception today about the NBA is that coaches really don't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, the players are so good, and if you can match them up the right way, the coach is kind of like an afterthought. I personally disagree with that, simply because you can have a bunch of talented guys, but if you don't, if you don't have the ability to mold all those, personalities and keep everything in line, and then, keep those guys behind them engaged for an entire season, and come up with sets and come up with different strategies and stuff like that. Just a lot more than just rolling the ball out and just telling guys to go play. Obviously the talent in the NBA today is very high. The guys are very skilled. So to an untrained eye, it looks like they just playing out there with the best guys, and the coach doesn't really mean anything. But that's not true. And I don't think that's what Kyrie was saying. I think Kyrie was basically saying, like, I'm Kyrie Irving and I got Kevin Durant with me. So, you pair us up, it doesn't really matter who's on the sidelines. I think that's kind of what he was saying, and that's kind of what he was alluding to. But I don't think it was disrespectful in terms of coaching. I definitely don't think it was disrespectful in terms of Steve Nash, or any of those guys might be enough for that position. But I just think he just feels like him and KD are that good. And so whoever the coach is, their job is going to be that much easier. But I don't think he's necessarily disrespecting the need to have a coach.
Kind of nexus those comments to this right here. And Alvin Gentry and Nate McMillan, and then eventually Doc Rivers, they lose their jobs. Doc Rivers eventually gets the job in Philly. But with that being the backdrop, and you have these comments, and then the uproar that came with Steve Nash getting the Brooklyn job, pretty much without any minority candidates really being interviewed for the job or seriously talked about. Is it up to NBA players to take more of a stand when it comes to the entreatment of black coaches or the opportunities for black coaches? We have more black coaches, I guess, in assistant positions around the NBA, but taking that next step. How important is it for NBA players to be involved with that, or should they be involved with it or have that pressure on them at all?
I think it's a situation by situation. I think Kyrie, going back to Kyrie's comments, I think his comments are kind of soaked in conversations he and Durant probably had with Steve Nash, and Steve Nash probably preached, "Hey man, it's my first time ever doing this, so I'm gonna lean pretty heavy on you guys to make this happen." And Jacques is already there, and I'm gonna lean on Jacques harder than anybody because he basically has carried the torch up to this point. So Steve Nash, and knowing Steve Nash, he probably's like, we're gonna do this by committee. Yeah. So that gave Kyrie the freedom to say what he said. It just was taken, the wrong way. And Kyrie should know better by now with the statements he make, how they're going to be taken. But I don't think there was any malice in that statement or any shade thrown at the coaching position or the coaching fraternity. I think it's a unique situation that they're in because of who Steve Nash is, and this is his first time doing this and having a relationship with KD, having conversations with Kyrie, and probably Jacques Vaughn's like, look, we're gonna do this by committee. Very much the same way Steve Kerr did when he got down to Golden State, when he had Ron Adams and he had Alvin Gentry. Like, look, we're gonna do this by committee, and we're gonna lean on Steph, we're gonna lean on Draymond, we're gonna lean on the players that have been here, and I'm going to personally lean on Mark Jackson to get us. They did it by committee. And it's still kind of being done that way. Steve still gets the credit for being a quote unquote head coach, but it's not like that. It's not run like that. It's an all-in situation. And so I think that's what Kyrie was rooted in when he made that comment. And it doesn't come from anywhere, it comes from previous conversations. Now, to the second question about should players be more involved, have more power, I guess, to make decisions on who the coach situation is. And that's what I say it's from situation to situation. I think in this particular situation with Kyrie and Kevin, they haven't been as big as they are. They haven't been with the Nets long enough to make a decision based on how ownership is going to run their franchise. But I think there are players who have been in franchise and done things long enough where they do have the power to say something. And if they mean that much to their organization. You know, I think going back to Golden State, Steve Kerr, great dude, but if Steph and Clay and like Draymond collectively was like, hey, you know what? We want Mark Jackson back, you know, or whatever they want to do, they are in position much better to make moves or make statements that are going to lead to change from an organization standpoint than somebody who hasn't, than two players who haven't bounced the ball for their organization, done something for their organization yet. I just did a radio show last week talking about, you know, who the Clippers should hire as their next head coach following Doc Rivers. And should Kawhi and Paul George be in that conversation with, you know, Steve Ballmer? I'm like, tell me what the hell Paul George and Kawhi Leonard did to earn the right after the way they played. You know what I'm saying? To say something. You've been there 1 year and you underachieved like a motherfucker. You know, hey, I'm all down for the cause, fist up and all that. But yo, your black ass has got no right to say anything about anything this organization does after what you did. Now, if you earned the right, now, like, even though he's only there 1 year, but if Kawhi wanted to talk about something that he stayed in Toronto, he'd have earned the right to do that because of he single-handedly there and they bought them a championship. So my point is that it goes from situation to situation. Michael Jordan had the right to say anything he wanted to about how the Bulls ran the organization because of what he had done for them. You know, he didn't have the same rights in DC, even though he did have ownership there. You know what I'm saying? Patrick Ewing, when he was a Knick, all that time there, he got rights. Dominique Wilkins, when he was with, you know, Atlanta, he earned the rights. So if you look at the collective of who goes on and who's at what team and what they've done there, yes, there are certain black players that do have rights within the organization and franchise to stress who that organization should look to hire for a coach. But it's very situational because not every black player has that right to start making those decisions. Like Kemba Walker cannot say anything in Boston right now.
Right.
But Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown probably have more ground to make that statement and have a say in that particular conversation. You know, so we have to take those things in mind when we're talking about organizational moves and black players dealing with issues of race and what the organization should do. And also, you need to know what that player's contract is at the time when they start taking stands. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Players are still bound by contracts. You know, so if you're about to enter into free agency and you're on shaky ground anyway, like, hey, dude.
No matter what you say.
Right, it don't matter what you say, because you have to take that in consideration too. You can't take no Stokely Carmichael stance and your ass is on your way out the door. You know, you about to be on the trading block. So I think it goes from situation to situation.
All right, the podcast according to sources, as always, Sean Davis at SD2 Mics, Chris Kaysen at C4 Dunk, Brian Crawford at B_Crawford4D. Special guest, Scoop Jackson. You talked about Slam Magazine, and you talked about how important it is to the culture and to basketball and to the young players that exist, young stars that exist in the NBA today. So that leads us to our next topic when we talk about the evolution of the GOAT conversation. It's very prevalent right now because of where LeBron James is and trying to solidify his resume, win a fourth championship. Is he the GOAT over Michael Jordan? Can he ever catch Michael Jordan? In your time and all the stories that you've written, can you peg when the GOAT conversation really came into existence? Because I can remember when I grew up, Michael Jordan was everything to me, and my father would beat me over the head with Elgin Baylor all the time. It's like, man, Elgin Baylor used to put up those type of stats all the time. You need to read about Elgin Baylor. So it seemed to be regional, or it seemed to be preferential, but now it seems to be more solidified. I guess universal. Was Michael Jordan the first universal recognized GOAT when it comes to the NBA?
Nah, being the OG in the conversation, it didn't transition like that. I was surprised your father just skipped over Julius Erving. He went so I passed Dr. J because it was Elgin Baylor, then it was Julius Erving, and then from there it was the Magic and Bird conversation. And I think what's happened is that, you know, leading up to Michael Jordan, there was always transition. The conversation started, but it was a conversation. And then it was given time for everybody to prove them wrong. Elgin Baylor held it down for a long time. Doc came in, did his thing in the ABA, and that was amazing. But like, let's see what he does in the NBA. And after a period of time, you know, those Elgin Baylor cats, same way with Wilt Chamberlain. It was Wilt Chamberlain forever. And it was hard for the older cats. I was young at the time. But it was hard for those older cats to give Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that torch when he was Lou Alcindor. It was really tough. But after like 5 or 6 years, you know, everybody bows down. Same thing with hello, y'all still there?
Yeah, we're here.
All right. Same thing with what you call it with like I said with Elgin Baylor. It was, you know, just Doc came in, and once he got to the NBA, everybody started bowing down after that. And from there, this is where it got difficult. Is Magic and Bird came in together, and they got a good head start because they brought their college experience into the game. And you know, it's like, all right, well, now it's two, and it was not just about what they did on the court; it was what they were able to do, and Doc wasn't able to do. You know, they kind of both went through Doc to get to where they were. You know, Bird in the Eastern Conference getting him, in Magic, hell, you know, came in the league taking, you know, chips away from Doc. So they did that. And when Michael came in, it wasn't just a Doc conversation. It was a Doc / Larry Bird / Magic Johnson. And it took time for Michael to get in there from our standpoint, not from your standpoint because you're young, because Michael meant everything to you. But from our standpoint, it was like he still has to surpass Magic and Larry to get that crown. And once he did that, it was all good. What seems to happen now is that the conversation starts without really doing anything to see if that person passed that individual. And I hate to say it, but a lot of that is on us. And when I say us, I mean ESPN. The difference that everybody else had, that LeBron has that nobody else had is the power of ESPN.
Yeah.
ESPN generated a 24/7 nonstop platform for that conversation to exist. And that's forced the nature of how it's actually gone down in the past, where there's been those periods where you had the conversation and the other person who was coming up new had a chance to prove to those who were against it that, you know what, okay, he earned the right. You know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar earned the right. Julius Irving earned the right. Michael Jordan earned the right. We starting to have this conversation where LeBron he hasn't necessarily earned the right to surpass Michael Jordan, but he hasn't had to surpass Michael Jordan to get into the conversation. The conversation started as equal, and ESPN as a network has fueled a conversation that they weren't in position to fuel before.
You know, I agree with that. And I think, you know, to kind of take that one step further, you know, I think the GOAT conversation for me now, these days, is about who someone's favorite player is. Not necessarily, you know, what they have done, you know, in their careers or anything like that. It's just like, okay, this is my favorite player, and that's why he's the GOAT. Yeah. And like Scoop said, you know, a lot of that is fueled by ESPN. And then the other side of that is a lot of people who are, you know, making these GOAT claims don't really know history. You know, you got people who think the reason Michael Jordan was as good as he was because the talent that he played in was inferior compared to, you know, what guys are today. And it's just not the case. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, there's a lot of recency bias that goes on in that conversation. And it's a lot of closed ears too, you know, whereas, you know, guys in this generation, like, you know, putting myself in school situation, you know, like now I'm that OG because I've seen Michael Jordan, you know what I'm saying? I saw Magic and I saw, you know, Kareem and Bird, even though it might have been the tail end, but I saw all of that stuff. And so I have a perspective that a lot of these young guys don't, because of the simple fact I have witnessed these eras. And so, you know, I can sit up here and say, you know, yeah, I saw that the competition, there was no fall off. You know, I can say that, but, you know, a lot of these young cats, they don't want to hear it, you know, just because it's been drilled into them so much.
let me ask you a question, B. Why does this generation, and I'm not trying to get like generational, but I need somebody to explain to me why it is so important to have to see something to validate it.
Well, I mean, it's like,
Because look, ain't none of us seen Jesus.
I mean, that's true.
You know what I mean?
But then I could,
believing in higher powers and stuff like that. Ain't none of it. All these kids ain't never seen Martin Luther King, but they understand the movement. So I don't understand why when it comes to basketball, and this GOAT conversation, well, if I didn't see it, it didn't exist.
Right. You know, and
that's
that's
a lot of people we have not seen. You haven't seen, but you fall for that.
Well, I mean, but for me, growing up in the game, like I was kind of like a history buff on it. You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to go back and see. I wanted to see who all of
others, not you. I'm talking about explaining to me why others use that as their crutch. Like I didn't see it, so I can't.
Oh, it didn't happen. Like
I think everybody wants to be able to say, "I saw the best basketball player there was." I think this whole LeBron versus MJ, I still don't put LeBron over Kobe, or even Magic to that standpoint. And this all depends on what you're looking at. I mean, are you looking at overall stats? Are you looking at titles? Are you looking at finals appearance? It's whatever. But I think at the end of the day, everybody wants that claim that I saw the best basketball player there is. And then there's a lot of people that fall into that crowd. They just take a side. They're not even really purely basketball fans. And a lot of these people now, they're not watching each game. They're watching national games and they're watching postseason games. And all of it is still narrative driven now because like you said, you got the 24/7 sports news cycle on. You got all of these talk shows, all these debate shows. So everything is constantly getting pumped into this new generation and they buy into it. So I just think at the end of the day, everybody wants to be able to say, I saw the best basketball player there he is.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and ask a question.
I was going to say this. Jeff Van Gundy said something. Maybe it was like game one, something like that. Or maybe I overheard a game two. But he was talking about, LeBron and the Michael Jordan conversation. And Jeff Van Gundy was like, at the end of the day, LeBron James might walk away as the player who had the best career out of everybody who was in this GOAT conversation. But that doesn't necessarily make him the best player.
Best player, yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, you know what? That really kind of put me at peace with the whole thing because they kind of like broke it down. Like, you know what? I understand that. I can actually concede that. I can actually say, you know what? LeBron James played damn near 20 years in the league, put up numbers in this particular modern era that we haven't seen, obviously ever. You know what I'm saying? And he's racked up all these accolades. I'm okay with saying he's had the best career than, maybe a Michael Jordan who accomplished a lot in 13 years, but he didn't play as long as LeBron. He didn't have, he had a couple years of college before, whereas LeBron came into high school, so he got off to an earlier start. So I'm okay with Bron saying, or somebody saying that Bron had a better career, but in terms of actual better player, and what that means, there's no way that LeBron could be better than Michael Jordan.
I'm sorry, Sean. I said? I've always left it at this, man, and usually this ends the conversation. If LeBron and Mike in a room together, that's when the GOAT conversation is going to be decided. And if you really believe that LeBron James can prove to Michael Jordan, and them two in the room just alone, if you believe LeBron James can walk out of that room convincing Mike that he's better than him, then that's the win. But we all know
it's not gonna happen.
That's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
And that's it. It's because it's a conversation between two people. And if those two people who are the subjects of this conversation have a conversation, that's it. Our point means nothing. It's between them two, but we all know who's going to come out on top of that conversation.
I mean, you know what? And it's bigger than basketball. Michael Jordan literally is basketball. Like, literally is the game. Like, when you think about basketball, Michael Jordan is going to be the first person that you think of, because he took it from, what it was. And, obviously Magic and Larry, they saved the league, they saved the NBA. Well, Michael Jordan blew basketball up and turned it into this big global thing. You know what I'm saying? And LeBron just kind of, if you want to say, he kind of rode the coattails of that because he had the internet. You know what I'm saying? And once LeBron is like the first internet superstar that we've seen in basketball. And so that's really a large part of the reason why a lot of these young guys think he's the GOAT because they grew up with the internet and he was the first person that they saw. So it doesn't really, it doesn't matter if he's been in 10 finals and, lost 6 of them. It doesn't matter to them because they don't really understand that whole winning type of attitude because in the internet, everything moves quick like this. You know what I'm saying? They don't understand the grind.
Understand once again that if Mike and LeBron are in a room together, locked doors, they know Mike's gonna come out. Like, yeah.
I mean, LeBron know better, and that's the other part of LeBron. He knows better, man, but he buys into a lot of this stuff too.
I know, but that's the point. It's like we can talk about it all. All of us can talk about it. The whole damn world can talk about it. But the two people who are at the center of this, if they talk about it, just them.
He couldn't have had that conversation with Kobe. Like Chris said, like he hadn't even passed Kobe.
Right. And Mike and Kobe would be the exact same thing. He come out and do the hell.
So
and it's not about like Mike litigating better than they do. It's just the facts.
Right.
The basketball. Michael would lay down hard basketball facts that those cats would be, I ain't gonna say they'd be scared, but they would have no comeback for. And because of who they're talking to.
Exactly.
They may say some shit to us, but when you sitting there in front of Mike and you trying to prove to Michael Jordan you greater than him, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck with that.
Yeah. If you can't do that, then you can't be claimed to GOAT.
Mm-mm.
You cannot be claimed to GOAT. You know what I'm saying? Look, Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal can walk up to, Rod Laver or Bjorn Borg and straight up be like, look, man, I was the greatest tennis player. And they're like, hey, we can't argue with that. Right. You know what I'm saying? We cannot argue with that. There are certain players that are doing certain things. It doesn't make a difference. There are so many players doing so many things that you can't walk into the room and have a 2-person conversation. And if you come out the winner, then you're the actual GOAT.
Yep.
You are the actual GOAT. Now, like here, I got one. Let's say I'll throw it up there because it's equal, but people could argue. Who could go in the room with Tom Brady? Who could go in the room with Tom Brady? Tom Brady and Jim Brown. Okay, who's gonna come out that argument the winner? If they want to claim they're the GOAT in football, who's gonna come out?
Shit, they better hope it ain't no balcony. Jim Brown to throw Tom Brady off the balcony.
Right, exactly. All right, so that's my point. It's like, let's get 2 people in the room and let them decide it. Our conversation about this is a lot of time based on opinion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like he said, it's based on preference of who we favor. My thing is get down to the root of this and talk about the 2 individuals. What would happen if they had a conversation? How would that come out? And to me, if you believe, or if anybody believes that if LeBron James and Michael Jordan were in a room and had a conversation about who was the greatest of all time, and they feel LeBron James would win that conversation, then I'm not going to argue with you. That if you can stand on that, then that's what you stand on in your mind. That's it. Your mind. The conversation ends. And that has nothing to do with preference or who you favor. It's just a matter of what you think is going to happen when those 2 come out that room for a conversation. And it's not about them playing against each other. Because all we're doing is having conversations about a GOAT. That's all it is a conversation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So put the conversation to the 2 people at the center of it. And whoever comes out the room, that's it. Because guess what? To be honest with you, if we're having this national or global conversation about who the GOAT is, and LeBron and Michael do have that conversation, and Michael Jordan comes out and says, you know what? LeBron convinced me he was greater than me. What can we say? You know what I'm saying? It's over. If Michael Jordan says LeBron convinced me that he was greater than me, we like, hey, we can disagree, but we can't have an argument because the man already said it.
Yeah.
Conversation. That's the way we need to go with all of these GOAT conversations. You know,
I might tell Mike to put the yak down. He had a little too much to drink.
Look, man, you know how Mike goes. Mike is so, that's why I put it, Mike is so particular about holding on to his stature that I love the fact when he was talking about the dunk contest and jumping from the free throw line, he said, you know what made mine greater than Dr. J jumping from the free throw line?
Dribble the ball.
Yes.
Dribble the ball, yeah.
Right. Like, nobody's calling traveling in the dunk contest, but Mike is so hard on sticking true to what makes him great. He broke it down to the dribble. So I'm like, if you break it down to a dribble in a conversation about the greatest dunk, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell are you gonna do when LeBron James talk about a whole career in front of your face? Man, he gonna eat him alive.
Right.
He will eat him alive. Mike is petty like that, but it's a beautiful petty. It's a beautiful petty because it's a petty you can't come back at.
There you go.
And when you try to win an argument, and all of y'all got women in your lives, when it comes to petty, you try to win an argument, dude.
It ain't happening.
Yeah,
That
it
ain't right.
ain't happening. Nah, you ain't gonna never win an argument with that petty person.
That petty wins all the time.
All the time.
Podcast according to sources. Look, before we let you go, Scoop, what's the one story that you felt like supplanted or made Slam Magazine the cultural iconic piece of literature that it was for the culture? And then what's that one story that you haven't gotten that you still want to get?
The story I think that supplanted us in the magazine was a story that Tony Javito wrote in issue 4. Cover story on John Starks for issue 4. That did it for me. And Tony and I had done an issue together. We had done issue 3 because we came into issue 3 together, and we kind of did issue 3. But issue 4, Tony did a cover story on John Starks. And Tony didn't write much, because he was the editor-in-chief, so he didn't have time to write. But I could still, that to me did it, because that was something different. To me, it set the foundation for what everybody needs to bring to the table because of the way he created it. Talking about the sound that John Starks' shots made in that game 7 against Houston, the loss in New York. And I can remember to this day, it's clank, clank, clank. And throughout the whole story, he kept inserting those clanks. And it was so creative, so different, so what you would have never read Sport News or Sports Illustrated at the time. You as all these other publications, you wouldn't have read that anywhere. And that to me set the stage for everything we did going forward in Slam. And it set the stage for readership too, because when it came time to do a Reggie Miller story, and they refused to do Reggie Miller, and I had to force them to do Reggie Miller because they're Knicks fans up there and they hate Reggie Miller. And I did the Reggie Miller story. All I'm thinking about is, all right, Tony did his John Stark story, and that set the standard, so about the clanking, I'm going to start off the story comparing Reggie Miller's shooting to dropping bombs. You know what I'm saying? And so that forced me to start writing in a way and doing stories and taking angles and narratives, that kind of built up over time that established Slam. But what started it to me was Tony's story in issue number 4 on John Starks. That was just that was the dopest. And the story that I haven't done and I probably never do, it probably goes back to a conversation BC and I had earlier this week. Is the real story about Allen Iverson's life. Mm-hmm. We had a back and forth about underdogs, and I'm privy enough to really, really, really know, how Allen came up and how his life was, and understanding that there's no way we should be talking about this kid ever at all. I said back in the day, I said, if anybody knew Allen Iverson's true story, Oprah would have had him on the Angel Network immediately. But he's very protective about his past. He has a lot of dignity, a lot of pride. But if his true story ever came out, I would, I get it's never going to come out, but that would be one I would love to tell. But it's tied with another story. And I don't want Chris and Brian to laugh, because they're gonna shake their head because they want to tell this story too. And the guy told me if he ever told the story, he's gonna give it to me. I was gonna write the book. And that's the story of World Wide West.
Yep.
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 Yeah. West
story's
is
never gonna be told.
Right, exactly. So to Sean's question, the story that that's a tie with Allen Iverson's story. To get West's story told. Yeah. I've had two people tell me that if they ever write a book, they're gonna have me do it. Bishop Don Juan was one, and World Wide West was the other. Now, I don't know what that says about my life. But look, man, West's story is it's kind of like Allen Iverson's in the way that there's stories inside of those stories that nobody will ever know, that nobody will ever believe, that I've been privy enough to be around West to experience. And it's a fascinating story that I'll never be able to write, that ties itself with the Allen Iverson story that I'll never, ever, ever be able to write.
Well, hey, let me answer that question about the story that for me that made Slam the cultural icon. Was it the Ricky Davis story that you did with all the periods?
Yeah. Everybody knows that. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Finish talking.
That story right there is a piece of journalism that you will never see again. You will never see that. Because you first of all, how does anybody come up to even think that? You know what I'm saying? And then I heard stories. It was hell, behind the scenes when you turned that in, and they had hell just editing it because they didn't know what to do with it. You know what I'm saying? Like they look at it like, what is this? But it ran, and it was like, and it became like this cultural, like we talked about this too. Like it just that story took a life of its own. Like it became like this underground like cult favorite of like Scoop Jackson, like that made like everybody want to write because they read that shit like, yo, who comes up with this stuff? You know what I'm saying? So for me, that story right there, the fact that he wrote it and that it got printed and that it took me like 30 times to read it, you know what I'm saying? Like to actually get it. To me, like that was dope. That's what set Slam apart to me.
Yeah, and I done the story that Tony has had to deal with a couple of those like that, and that goes to trust. You hear it in basketball all the time when coaches trust players and do this, that, and the other. Here's a situation where I had an editor and a publisher, and this is one of those things like you're lucky, you take advantage of being, in the room where it happens, especially if you're the only, if you're that raisin in a bowl of milk, if you're the only brother in the room, that people do trust you. They trusted me that this was going to work, but they had trust before because the Ricky Davis piece wasn't. There were stories before that led up to that. That Reggie Miller piece was one of them. The one that really started that whole thing from a creative standpoint was one I did on Latrell Sprewell, where I basically wrote it in Wu-Tang lyrics because I found out he was a Wu-Tang fan. And this is off of Enter the 36 Chamber. This is early Wu-Tang. This isn't no later on. And even in New York, they're like, what the hell is this? And I'm dropping like lines that I know Ghostface would spit. Lines that I know Raekwon would spit. And that's one of the stories I actually wrote. I didn't write it for people to read. I wrote it for Latrell. I'm like, he'll get this. I strictly wrote it for Latrell to get. And Tony's like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, trust me. Just trust me. You know what I'm saying? Just trust me. And it's another one of those things that over a period of time in the underground, so like, oh man, this is dope because people were reading it in Wu-Tang and they connected to that story because of the way it was stylized as if I was like a 10th MC in the Wu-Tang Clan. And folks got that. So by the time it got to the Ricky Davis story, even with all some of the pushback, it was like, oh yeah, this is Scoop shit again. And he's done stuff like this before and it's worked, so we trust him. If I had come out the bat doing that, it never would have done that. But there were things leading up to that they knew I was doing what was in the best interest of the magazine, the best interest of the readers, the best interest of the culture. But that's just me trying to, push the boundaries, trying to give you all, not only you all something different to read every time out, but also challenging myself to see what the fuck I got inside of me that I can come out with. And that's a lot of, reading of other people's work, like reading Gary Smith and being like, damn, I'm never gonna get to this level, but I can try. You know, reading Tom Bernard, who Tom is in his creative mind. You know, like, damn, all right, how can I flip this and get close to doing this? You know, reading Nelson George's, the reading folks stuff, and like, all right, how can I, reach this level? And you all know me, listening to Stevie and Prince and Rakim and Cool G Rap, and watching The Wire and looking at the way, David Simon wrote shit and like, damn, how can I get there? How can I turn that into this? So it comes from, like I said, trying to do what's in the best interest, but also trying to give y'all something different, and me trying to push myself to, be better than I was the next time out, be different than I was the next time out. And a lot of people go to that Ricky Davis story. A lot of people go there, and I didn't think about it having that type of impact at all, because like I said, I've done stuff like that in the past, but for some reason that would connect it. But I think it connected because I really laid heavy on using one single word, meaning more than single words. Like I was trying to write one word paragraphs. You know what I'm saying? Like this one word is going to have the power of one paragraph. How can I find a way to, and then find a way to link it into the next word, or a word 4 words away. So when you read it, you're like, damn, wait a minute. Let me go back and read that. And this connects with that. But that's going back to listening to like Cool G Rap and him spitting bars and like, damn, he took that from here to here and brought it back to here. Now, how can I do that from a journalistic standpoint? And then not only do that without copying it, but then do it better. Yeah, it all stems from, it all stems from places. And when you're trying to reach the levels that you see other people of greatness do, and you never reach it, you got to at least swing, man. You got to at least try.
Hey, man, from Outkast, to borrow a title from one of their songs, The Art of Storytelling.
Yeah.
What do you feel like storytelling when it comes to the culture, the NBA, and basketball in general? Are you happy with where it exists and where it is and where it's
now
today? Yeah.
In sections, I am. Yeah, I think the narrative of long form storytelling has kind of gone by the wayside for a bit. I think it still exists, but it's not, the thing anymore. The business is leaning towards forced understanding, under my belief that people's attention span isn't that long and they don't want to spend that much time engaging. But people are still doing long form writing. Books are still selling. There's no way you could tell me that people aren't into long form writing. And Game of Thrones is flying off the shelves, and Lords of the Rings. You have Stephen King books. All these other long form 800-page documents are still flying off the shelves, and people are still doing things. And blogs are being written. 5,000-word blogs are getting like millions of clicks. So there's still an interest for long form writing. We're just in a stage where the larger businesses is trying to restructure the narrative. And I think great long form storytelling still happens in sections. I think you're coming into a space where a lot of the celebrated writers and journalists have not been forced to or given the opportunity to really dive into long form writings to build their careers off of. So you're finding a lot of young, talented writers not being able to create long form storytelling in a way that they possibly could because it's not in demand right now. And some of the long form storytellers that we had in the past have kind of retired for the most part. Rick Riley's, like I said, the Nelson George's before, the Gary Smiths, all the cats that came into the day and they were, doing and penning, stories. They just, they aren't around anymore. They were dealing with a different level of print. So I think you have to go and you have to do a little more searching. It's like finding good music now, or what you consider good music, where you're dealing with not just music that's been programmed, but where you're seeing producers and creatives layering sound, the way sound used to be layered, and you get a richness in the music. That's not just one beat that runs consistent, even though it's a dope ass beat. It's one beat that runs consistent, and then there may be one chord or bar change in that, and then it goes back to that. if you're going to find music where it's just layered, where you see different sounds coming in on top of one another, and it's a building of stuff, and you get the richness of it. That stuff still exists.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to now search harder to find it. It's the same thing with basketball writing and narrative and this form of long form and long form storytelling as far as we go as far as journalism is concerned. It's out there, but it's harder. You have to do a little more work to try to find it right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are great writers that are taking great strides to tell great narratives, even in short form. My only concern is that there seems to be a sense of disposability with that because of the frequency in which things come out. I'm in my mind, am experiencing the second wave of a generation that is looking at their work as being quote unquote disposable because they can cover for it very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of spaces where there's no monetary investment behind that makes you feel you're going to lose something if this doesn't come out right. So, the fact that you have a lot of cats that are building their own blogs and building their own websites, and they're not having to put their own financial equity behind it, and they're not going to lose anything if they write some shit that's bullshit, that's allowing them to write bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Get away with it, as opposed to like, look, we're starting this magazine, we're starting a digital magazine. I took $1,500 or $5,000 of my own money, and I had to build this from there. And now I'm going to be particular about every word I write because now there's a monetary value to the words that I write now. I can't waste words anymore. Now it's like, look, man, I write a blog. It didn't cost me anything to post this. So I'm going to say what the fuck I want to say it. And if it's bullshit, hey, I cover it up the next day and not lose anything behind that. You know what I'm saying? My career or my brand is not going to suffer behind that. So we're moving to the second generation of that. But I don't want to think that because that seems to be what's above the fold line right now in journalism, that's the entire narrative of journalism when it comes to sports and basketball as it exists. I think there's still some stuff out there. And there's also part of me that feels the way that BC does about the numbers game and how, numbers have become so prevalent in the storytelling now, when it comes to, dealing with basketball specifically. But that's, I take that for what it is. That's colonization at its best. And that's something that's always been here. And it's nothing new. It's just in a different form.
BCC4, you guys are great writers in your own right, man. You agree with Scoop is talking about with the state of long form storytelling when it comes to the culture in the NBA?
Well, yeah, I mean go ahead.
Chris. No, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's just like Scoop said, it's basically just editors or even like the business behind that looking at readers' attention spans and just putting everybody into a box saying, well, the common person's attention span is 5 minutes. So you basically, have like things now probably less than 1,500 words or less because now everybody's like going to what's next. They're looking at Twitter. So it's kind of conditioning this younger generation to look at these small blurbs and you have to compartmentalize all the information in that one. So that as a writer, there's no real chance to be creative because you just have to throw facts out there and then it's on to the next news thing. So, there are a lot of great writers out here. Some I know personally that, are still keeping that long form story element going. One of my favorites is a young woman in LA, Myron Fader from Bleacher Report. Beautiful writer, man. And so I think there's still elements of it there. There's still writers out there that are doing it. Like Scoop said, you have to search for it. You have to know who these writers are. Like it's not all in your face now because everybody now is just getting these like quick segmented pieces out there just because the thought process is everybody has like a little 5 minute attention span and that's just not the case.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's hard to be a long form writer, like Scoop and Chris said, in an era where people's attention spans are short. It's also hard to do that, in an era where people don't really read. And, they get a lot of the information visually, doing stuff like we doing, like, podcasts and stuff like that. So, for somebody to continue to kind of have that, that takes a passion because of so many things that you up against in terms of, technology and the way people receive information and consume information. There are some still, like you said, there are some still great writers out there, but you just got to find it. Long form is never going to die. There's always going to be people who like those stories. There's always going to be people who read books. We just have to get more of this younger generation to do that in terms of being able, as opposed to just getting the information from the microwave like as fast as they can get it, basically.
All right, Scoop, before we get out of here, we usually each and every podcast, we do what we call flavor in your ear. All right. And we talk about what we've been listening to over the last week. So since you are the special guest this week, what's been the flavor in the ear of one Robert Scoop Jackson?
I've been deep into writing and editing mode for the last month, but I've been always into and BC and Chris know this. I've always been deep into DJs, so I'm always listening, trying to find DJs and listen to sets and this, that, and the other. Since I've been in edit mode this week working on this project, I have been listening to Lil Louis Vega. I can't call him Little anymore. I've been finding and listening to Louis Vega mixes like all week long in the middle of this project I've been working on. But for the most part, going back for the last like couple of years, I've really been immersing myself into cast it into Afro and tribal house. So DJ Angel B, DJ Robbie Z, man, I can, there's a bunch of like cats, just spinning dope, super dope, tribal and Afro house that has been my go-to for, it's just it's just been my go-to. I've been doing that for the most part. And I could tell you somebody new. She just dropped because my son put me up on her. And I don't want to say it because I'm gonna say her name wrong. Her name is Rena. She's an Asian pop singer, but she almost has a voice similar to Christina Aguilera. Her last name begins with a W, and I cannot say it, and I don't want to pronounce it wrong, but her first name is Rena, R-I-N-A. She just dropped her first album. She's been around for about 5 or 6 years, dropping singles. And I think she's had an EP, but her album just dropped. And she's kind of a pop rock-based artist, but her album is dope. And if you're into, and I'm a big fan of pop music when it's done right. You know what I'm saying? Like pop music when it's done correctly can be amazing. Amazing. If Michael Jackson didn't prove anything, Janet Jackson, Madonna, you go to the Hall & Oates, you go to good pop music, you're like, damn, it just hits. And she's like the next Rena, I'll just say about first name. She's probably gonna be the next Billie Eilish, where she does pop music in that vein, and it's like, all right. And I just got hip to her a couple of weeks ago, so I did listen to her for a few days a couple of weeks ago. But other than that, man, I've just been immersed in doing my my DJ sets, and listening to as much indigenous African house music as I possibly can.
Shout out to a couple of our listeners that are watchers that are watching. They are texted in. I got a text from my daughter who's watching. Rena Sawayama.
That's it. Thank you. That's
the Japanese.
Yeah. I would have jacked up her. I just know I haven't listened to her long enough to really get it right because I'm just really new to her. But she's dope. And when you hear her sing, you're like, oh, she got some soul in her. She does. I don't know where it comes from. And a lot of times the music doesn't fit her voice, but it works. She's that was one of the things I was telling my son. I just want somebody like Pharrell to get his hands on her and give her some, and not that Pharrell does really soul music, because she couldn't deal with like, you know, like a Curtis Mayfield track. That'd be too much. She's not Josh Stone, but give her something with a black music aesthetic that's rooted in black culture. It would be done. You're like, okay, you know, she got it. So yeah. Oh, and shout out to other travel, your local Joy. Y'all know Alan King and Terry Hunt and those cats. You know, come on.
Man,
These two, what's in your ear?
well, you know, my musical taste ain't as eclectic as Scoops, but I have been listening to indigenous music too. I have been listening to indigenous folk rap made by West Side Gun, who made the Sunshine. You know, I've been listening to the Conway the Machine, so that's all I've been on.
Okay. All right. No Benny the Butcher?
Benny ain't dropped nothing yet. I heard Benny on everything that he did, you know, all his features and everything. I'm waiting on Benny to drop.
All right.
But
Benny,
you know, for me, it goes Conway, Benny, and West Side. That's it for me.
Benny's my dude. So I you know.
Yeah, my son like Benny too. That's how I got up on Griselda. I got up on Griselda through Benny because I tried to listen to Conway and I didn't like it at first.
Okay.
But then I got on to Benny and then I circled back and then I was like, oh no, all of this is dope. So yeah, I'm on but that new West Side, the new West Side is dope.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Bang, what did you and Bang call West Side Gunner? Like the best hip hop love making music?
Yeah, that's what he said. That's what Bang said. But you know, I think, you know, man, like I was telling y'all, man, like I think Griselda basically they got their own golden era going right now. Like they bringing you back to that, you know, to that feel of that music that, you know, when hip hop was big, that we all used to enjoy. And so that's what I can appreciate because it ain't nobody else out there rapping like them, you know, rapping like doing the type of music that they doing. And so to me, that's why I like it because they kind of like they in their own lane. Like it's an old lane, but it's a new lane. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people are still just kind of getting up on them. When I hear people talking about Conway and Benny, I'm like, man, y'all kind of late. I've been listening to them boys for like 4 years. But, you know, I appreciate the fact people is getting up and they going back and listening to some of that old stuff.
C4?
I've been on grind mode. So like I said, the last things I've been listening to is like I feel like the old guy now, the best of Anita Baker and like Marvin Gaye, I Want To, you know, that's been on like rotation the last week and a half for me.
Oh, and I did listen to I went back and listened to that Aretha gospel album that she recorded live in the church. Man,
Great.
People don't realize hip-hop is cold.
Yeah, man, that is, dude. That's one of the cold. That's one of the greatest musical experiences ever.
Ever, man. That damn near made me cry, man, because it was like you could feel it. And it's actually there's a documentary that I found and I saw like you know
they just released
like they just showed like the entire thing being recorded.
They had it. Do you know the story behind that? They had the film and recorded it at James Cleveland's church in LA. They did the whole thing. They literally documented it, filmed it, and recorded it. Somehow the sequencing of the film got lost and they couldn't sequence the sound from what they actually recorded. So they never released it. But recently, because of technology, they were able to go back and basically sync the film up to the recording. And that's how they were able to release the film. And they did it. They were doing it before she passed away, but they finalized it afterwards. So it was kind of like The Last Dance. It's been sitting there, but because of this, they couldn't sync them together. So
that's an experience, bro. Like that really is an experience. That was dope. That was super dope.
Yeah. Hey, I don't want to be funny, but speaking about GOAT conversations, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And you mentioned Anita Baker, who I love to death. And Gladys Knight, I've always said, if Aretha Franklin never was alive, we talk about Gladys Knight the way we talk about Aretha Franklin.
Facts.
There's not one singer, maybe Luther, maybe, or Luciano Pavarotti, but not even like Barbra Streisand who could sing her ass. You know, there's not one singer who could walk into a room and tell Aretha Franklin they're greater than her.
Nobody.
without getting
For me,
punched in the mouth.
Look, I had a conversation with some people I work with, you know, and it was like it ended up being like Anita Baker versus Aretha Franklin. I don't know how, but you
Right.
know, a lot of people thought, you know, that Anita Baker was the better singer. I'm like, y'all tripping. Like, she can't even hold a candle to Aretha Franklin. Like, it's not even close. Not even close.
And that's my point, is that when you put those two in the room, who's gonna come out? That's the greatest. It's the exact same thing. Anita's everybody know Aretha's the GOAT. You know,
man, Aretha would have kicked Anita out that room. Like, don't waste my time.
Exactly.
He waste my time.
Like, look, unless you bring Mahalia Jackson up in here to talk to me, then you need to
exactly
right there.
Go sit down. Yep.
Right. And like I said, Luther maybe can look in the door.
He can peep in.
Hey, big sis, you okay? Can I? You know, he may be
right. You know, I'm just checking on you.
Right. I'm just checking. That is all he can say.
So I had two things I checked out this week because they celebrated anniversaries, and shout out to some dude Pod Bang posted it all week. I checked out that Black Star was celebrating.
Wow.
I saw that go up. I had to roll back through the Black Star and check that out, and then I rolled back through the Equimini.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Those are the two albums, and then yesterday, one of the new releases I checked out. I wanted to see what Bryson Tiller was going to do with this anniversary album, and I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't expecting much, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Wow.
I got Terrence Tomlin said maybe Whitney would go in the room with Aretha.
You know what? I was thinking of Whitney because I think Whitney, and this is what Aretha would say, and this is what I've always stood on this. Whitney probably has the greatest voice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, her voice is purer than anything vocally we've probably ever heard. I don't think she is the greatest singer though.
Mm-hmm.
Her voice and what she was able to do with it is what gets her in that conversation. Like, it's very similar to like I said, Barbara Streisand, whose voice is amazing. If you're looking for the technical sound of what a voice is supposed to sound like and what somebody could do as far as range and octave and all that, amazing. But there's so many more elements to singing besides just the sound of your voice.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And the thing that would stop Whitney is that, okay, what are you making us feel with your voice? Like, Marvin Gaye is not the greatest singer of all time. He didn't have the greatest voice. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying, but he is the greatest singer of all time because of what is his voice combined with what he made you feel.
Yeah.
He is singing. Luther Vandross has a greater voice than Marvin Gaye, but that didn't necessarily make him a better singer or greater singer than Marvin Gaye. Because while Luther made you hear him, he didn't make you feel. And when you're looking at the composite of what somebody does, when we're talking about a singer, not a vocalist, a singer. When you talk about the greatest singer ever, I think that's where you lean on Aretha, because not only did she have that voice, but she made her voice, like Brian said, made you feel a certain way. As much as I love Whitney, Whitney never did anything that made me want to cry. That made me feel like crying. He didn't touch me emotionally like that. Luther, as much as I love Luther, you can be amazed at Luther's voice, but he didn't do anything that hit you in your soul that made you feel a certain way. Marvin did that. You know, so I hear what they're saying about Whitney Houston, but to me, that's just her voice. And there's another component in that to me is just as great that needs to be considered when we're talking about the greatest singer of all time, not the one with the greatest voice.
Man, Aretha give me that shiver sometimes. You know that shiver that you get in your body? Bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It just hits you. Yeah. That's Aretha
and
all day.
Note or any, it's just her whole delivery and the sound and where that sound came from that made you feel that. You know, and it's a lot of times that we deal with that. That's an unspoken thing that you can't document. There's no numbers, there's no data, there's nothing. It's about what you feel and how that artist or that person or whatever they do, how that creator makes you feel. And that is just as much a point of the conversation, I think, as anything. You know,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure, and I'm taking a stretch here, there may be somebody out there who can play the trumpet better than Miles Davis. Technically.
Mm-hmm.
But ain't nobody gonna make you feel the way Miles. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody's gonna take you to those places, you know, that make you feel that certain the way he did that. You know, and that's, you know, that to me is that they go hand in hand when we're talking about overall greatness.
Shout out to our boy Eugene McIntosh. Boy, we see Eugene. He said BC, that new Willie the Kid is fire as well.
See, I appreciate Gino, man, because Gino be putting me up on some stuff, and he don't have no misses. I'm just hoping I also been listening to that Flea Lord too. So Gino, I hope you've been checking them out too.
Hey, Scoop, you talked about House, and we're all from Chicago. Who's walking in that room arguing best house DJ? Cats walking in the room for that argument.
It's going to be tough because of all things that are in consideration. Frankie's stature elevates him to the top of the conversation, but Frankie's technically not from here. You know, Frankie's from New York. So to have that, you know, if you talk about Chicago house, or you talk about just house in general, because those are two different conversations, really. But to me, we're the foundation of it. So it starts and ends here.
Okay.
Covers like that. But it's going to be tough to not include Frankie in that conversation because of a technicality.
You know what? I didn't even realize New York had a house music scene until like way later. Later. I had no idea.
Yeah. No. It was way later. You know, and that's credit to Larry Levan and Frankie Knuckles for basically building.
Yeah, Larry Levan, Frankie Knuckles,
and Timothy Regifort. You know, they were the ones who really gave New York a house foundation because they were playing, you know, what then was considered disco, but black disco is basically house music. So that's music. You know, right. So but to answer your question, Sean, I think it just DJ, not producer, right? Just DJ, right?
DJ.
It has to start with Ron Hardy. And because of the longevity, he's probably LeBron James in this conversation, Alan King, and the trifecta on this conversation because of what he did and started off as the first like super house DJ, and because he still has relevance now, Jesse Saunders. As far as house music goes in Chicago, the conversation about who's the greatest would have to start off with those three. And it's hard to bring Jesse in there because he started producing music so early, and he created a sound through production, not just DJing, but he started off as a DJ. But still, what he does here is still important. And I would include Terry Hunter in there, but Terry's young in the game, and he's got a lot of credit for his production, you know, as much as he has his DJing. But strictly from a DJing standpoint, Ron Hardy, Alan King, Jesse Saunders. To me, those three are the GOAT conversation starters. Now, who comes out the room?
Yeah.
Jesse's arrogance would not allow him to come out the room without losing. Alan, his respect for the craft would probably bow down to Ron Hardy. And I don't know, I didn't know Ron personally like that, but from what I've heard about Ron and people talk about Ron as a nice and humble individual he was very, very secure in his role of establishing house music in Chicago. And he probably forced Jesse to be like, leave.
Man, that's the podcast according to sources. As always, we are streaming on all digital platforms. You can go find A2S Network, and you should be able to download all of our previous episodes. You can also find us at PeytonSportNet.com for Peyton Sports Network. And as always,
can I shout out one thing real quick? I'm sorry. I didn't because I know this dude would take it personally. you know, because he has a beautiful pettiness himself. But Wayne Williams would probably be in the room too. I had to give Wayne his credit.
Okay.
I had to give Wayne his credit. It can't be just a thing. Wayne would force himself in the room.
Shout out to DJ Wayne Williams, man.
Yeah, shout out to DJ. Shout out to Wayne Williams. And I know he's come with me before. So I know I don't want to say anything in public and not include him in that conversation. if he comes at me again, we're going to have a problem.
The podcast, according to sources, ESPN Zone, Undefeated, oh man, Island Media, Slam Magazine,
ESPN.
ESPN. I'll say that again.
Right.
The OG, the big homie.
Gotta mention
Chicago icon.
That Mickey Mouse come to the house. You gotta say Mickey Mouse, dude.
What I'm trying to say.
Global icon. Man, the list just goes on and on. The fact that all you guys are writers, I'm just gonna tell you now, I don't have enough words to be able to give you the flowers, the proper flowers that you deserve, bro.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
I'm just letting you know that how you impacted my life and Jared Payton Studios just from a 5-minute conversation. And
yeah,
what and what you opened my eyes to, and what my career could be even back in 2011. Man, you have no idea the levels that you pushed me to.
Okay.
Just having a relationship with these two guys and knowing what you mean to them as well. Hey, bro, this world and everybody that does this, we owe you a lot.
Nah, man, y'all owe me nothing but, you know, for what you all mean to me. That's it. The fact that you all are doing you, finding yourselves, and, you know, that's it. You know, y'all know, especially BC and Chris, you know, they know as long as you all make the effort to find yourself, that's what means more to me. That's why y'all mean so much to me, because you all are really, really, really continuing to find yourself in this space and not selling yourselves out or selling yourselves short. So y'all ain't gotta thank me. I thank you all, man. I thank you all. Y'all the ones that give me purpose.
Oh, that's what's up. We appreciate that, bro. That means a lot.
Because at the end of the day, y'all, you know, as you all get older, we'll figure this out. You all there will be time where you'll have to like realize, like, damn, am I doing this for a reason? You know what I'm saying? Seriously. Am I doing this for a reason? And that's when you understand, you know, that what you're doing is for that purpose. That same purpose we talked about Anthony Davis coming to now that he's in the finals. You're doing something for a purpose. And for me, you all of that purpose. Seeing you all of that purpose. And when you all get to that stage, y'all start knowing it now. Look, y'all ain't young anymore. Don't put me out here as no damn girl.
Hey, that's a fact.
Y'all ain't young no more. Look, hey, BC, when Chris had a kid, I knew it was over.
I know, right?
Right. I'm like, Chris having kids now. We old now. This is done.
I had several by the time Chris had his first. So super old. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you. So no, real talk. But yeah, y'all will understand that. When you all understand that, you know, you find that what you do is for a purpose greater than yourself. And it sounds corny, but it's real. When you start realizing that, that's when you realize how important others are to you. You know, the people who give you flowers, the people that tell you what you mean to them, you realize that that's straight up reciprocal. You know, it goes right back. You all are just as important to me as you all say I have been to you all. Trust me.
I appreciate that, man. I always tell people, man, I ain't necessarily supposed to be here, but I'm glad I'm here. And you know, all the OG wisdom that you passed down to me, I pass it down to, you know, to all of the younger cats coming behind me that I know about that say they look up to me, which is weird or whatever. But
yeah,
you know, I take it in stride, and I'm like, hey, man, I just try to give them as much game as, you know, the OGs are giving me, like yourself, you know, Mike Wilbon, all these guys has been doing it way longer than I have. So, man, I just appreciate the relationship, appreciate, you know, knowing you, my brother, and appreciate knowing if I call you and you don't answer, you're going to call me back. So, that's all I can ask for.
Always. Well, I call your ass back because I know that something must be wrong.
Sometimes I just be wanting to say what's up, man. That's it.
You know, I gotta fuck with you, boy. You know I gotta.
I know it.
So as always, man, we ended by saying 3 dudes that are from the game, who love the game, just talking the game. But today it's 4 dudes from the game that love the game, just talking about the game. For all of our listeners, man, continue to follow us at A2S Pod 1. We appreciate you. We bid you adieu until next time. Thanks for joining us.
Later. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.